And we are live.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the first City Council meeting in 2023, albeit that it is a special City Council meeting. And want to remind those who are coming in virtually, members of council, please, once this meeting is ended, please stay online because this meeting will be followed, for those of you who are on the HR committee, because there'll be an HR committee meeting using the same Zoom link. So with that, we have our Deputy Clerk, Chris Gauthier, today providing clerking services for the meeting, together with assistance from Melanie Figueredo. So, Mr. Deputy Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councillor Samwell.
Here.
Councillor Hunt.
Present.
Councillor Caputo.
Present.
Councillor Sullivan.
Present.
Councillor McCreary.
Here.
Councillor Sless.
Present.
Councillor Martin.
Here.
Councillor Carpenter.
Here.
Councillor Sokoli.
Present.
Councillor Van Tilburg.
Present.
Mayor Davis.
Present.
Roll call has been taken.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Clerk. So, does anybody have a declaration of pecuniary interest in respect to any of the three items that are on this afternoon's agenda, being a proclamation, one substantive item, and a notice of motion? Now's your time to declare it. Seeing no raised hands. We have no delegations or presentations this afternoon, but we do have a proclamation. And Councillor McCreary, I understand you're going to move the proclamation. Would you please state your seconder and also read the proclamation aloud?
Yeah, that's correct, Mayor. Thank you very much. Councillor Martin is the seconder. I'll read it as follows. It's concerning Bell Let's Talk Day, January 25th. Whereas January 25th marks the 13th annual Bell Let's Talk Day, a day of conversation, support, and positive change for mental health. And whereas the City of Brantford supports positive mental health for all its citizens and members of our community and seeks to improve the lives of the 1 in 5 Canadians who will experience a mental illness or mental health issue in their lifetime. And whereas Bell Let's Talk Day promotes mental health awareness, acceptance, and action built on 4 key pillars: fighting stigma, improving access to care, supporting world-class research, and leading by example in workplace mental health. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council and Corporation of the City of Brantford hereby proclaims Wednesday, January 25 as Bell Let's Talk Day in the City of Brantford.
All right, Mr. Deputy Clerk, you please take the vote.
Item 4.1, Bell Let's Talk Day proclamation carries unanimously on recorded vote. Members of council voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Sokoli, Sless, McCreary, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samwell, Hunt, Martin, Caputo, Sullivan, and Mayor Davis.
All right, so we have one item for consideration on today's agenda, the recruitment process for the Chief Administrative Officer. So Councillor Sullivan, could you please move item 5.1 and state your seconder so we can get this on the floor for discussion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Davis. That's seconded by my ward mate, Councillor Rose Sokoli. That staff be directed to engage an external executive search firm to conduct the Chief Administrative Officer CAO recruitment as outlined in Report 2023-56, and that the cost to conduct the Chief Administrative Officer CAO recruitment to a maximum of $75,000 be funded from the Corporate Contingency Reserve RF 0554, and that the CAO Selection Committee, comprised of Mayor Davis and the following selected councillors, be established to assist the CAO recruitment process, including shortlisting candidates for the interviewing by all of City Council, and that staff be directed to bring a report back to January City Council meeting with options to fill the Chief Administrative Officer CAO position on an interim basis.
So I would like to take the prerogative of the chair to make a few comments. First of all, I would have very much preferred that we not start the new year with a special City Council meeting with the purpose of looking for a new CAO. However, it is what it is, and we will have an opportunity probably at the February City Council meeting to express our best wishes in regards to Mr. Hutchins, because he is continuing to serve as CO until March 3rd. So what you have before you, well, first of all, let me say that the search for a CAO is different than the search process we have in place for general managers. That process is determined. We have a process for that. Usually it's the HR committee that's quite involved in that. And we don't usually use a recruitment officer. It's handled by HR. The position of the CAO is, I don't need to understate the importance of that to us as council. That is probably the most important individual who works for the city administration and carrying out policy and directives given by council. And so it's important then that since the CAO does a report to us, that we obviously be quite involved in the process of hiring, and that the whole process report up to us as a city council. And in order to do that, it's certainly, I can tell you from my experience 4 years ago, having a recruitment firm is absolutely essential in order to, and the reasons are set out in the staff report. But for me, the major consideration was it gave us greater degree of input into the whole process. Plus, you're casting a very large net, because there are some individuals that might consider this who might not respond to an ad, but may be more responsive to the inquiries of a recruiter. The whole process obviously does allow for and encourages internal applicants as well. In terms of what we have before us then, A and B deal primarily with that process, the establishment or giving authority to staff to do an RFP to obtain a recruitment firm to help the CEO selection committee. It then also involves C, a CEO selection committee. Now, in the past, it's been 4 years ago, it was a committee of 3, 2 councillors and the mayor. This report suggests that that could be that 2, or it could be 4. I'll just say one thing. I'd ask as mayor that it be an odd number, because it's not a committee where you want deadlock votes. You want to certainly avoid that. On the other hand, you don't want the committee to be too large that it becomes cumbersome, and it is very time consuming. The members who serve in this committee, you can expect you're going to spend at least 2 full days interviewing probably somewhere between 10 to 12 candidates, because the purpose of the CEO selection committee is to assist council and provide a short list for council members to interview. And of course, council makes the final decision. D, of course, is because we're going to have a period of at least 2 to perhaps 4 to 5 months where we won't have a CO in place. We need as a council to determine what the procedure or process will be for an interim CAO to oversee the city administration during the interim, and suggest that we deal with that at the January City Council meeting with input from city staff. So those are my comments. Floor is open for discussion. I believe Councillor McCurry, you had your hand up.
Mayor, thank you very much. Yeah, I think what we have before us it mirrors pretty closely what we did in prior years, specifically with the hiring of Mr. Hutchins some, I guess, nearly 5 years ago now. So previously we had a small committee, as the mayor said, consisting of mayor, chair and vice chair of human resources, who did the preliminary round of interviews and then forward at a short list to council. What we have before us is pretty much the same thing. Mayor, I'd like my name attached to that. I'd like to be involved in this. But I should also say that for those of you who have not been through this process before, as the mayor said, it's a very intensive process. But the thing to bear in mind is that those participating in this process have to sit in on every interview of every candidate that's to be considered. Otherwise, your time is wasted and you wouldn't be able to cast your ballot for candidates and to advance that. So I would respectfully say, if you can't devote the time to be making sure you're there for everything, probably best to wait until it comes to council with the short list. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Martin.
Yes, thank you. I'll volunteer my name for this list as well. I think this is a very, very important position for the city. It's something we need to get right, and I would be happy to offer my services to this committee.
Councillor Sluss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I too will put my name forward. I have the time, and I was involved in the last round when we hired Mr. Hutchins, and it's been stated, and it's very true. It's very time consuming and it's labor intense. I think we spent pretty much a couple of days out at the Best Western with candidates coming and going all day long, both days. So it's a rigorous couple of days. I'll tell you, it was time consuming and it was exhausting by the end of it, because you have to be sharp all day. There's no opportunity to kind of lay back and just relax, because you're constantly going at it, because you're constantly dealing with new people. So if council would like me, I'm prepared to stand. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, in the council chamber, Councillor Hunt.
Yes, I'm going to put my name forward just based on my professional experience. I have experience recruiting leadership positions, maybe not quite at this level, but certainly working with executive search teams.
Back to those coming in virtually, Councillor Scully.
It sounds like we have many volunteers. I was going to offer my name forward for consideration, having done this a few times prior to my council role, but I am incredibly supportive of the direction that we are taking. I think hiring an external firm to look into potential candidates is of the utmost importance. So I'm incredibly supportive, and I'm sure no matter what, we're going to have a great team of people looking to do the interview process. Thanks.
Councillor Samuel.
I would also like to put my name forward for this.
All right, is there anybody else who wants to volunteer? Oh, Councillor Scully, is your hand? Do you want to speak a second time, Councillor Carpenter?
Yeah, first time, but that's fine. Just want to say that this is the most important position, but it's the most important position to the mayor. CEO and the mayor work hand in hand, not members of council as much, or not supposed to be, but generally it's the CEO and the mayor. So it's very important what the mayor's position is, and he has to be comfortable, he or she has to be comfortable with whoever is the CEO, because they do work hand in hand to get things done in the city. I think this is a good process, and I think you've got a lot of volunteers already on the list. You've already got too many on the list already. So I would have put my name forward, but you have a great list already. Thank you.
All right, here's what I'm going to suggest we do to move things along. I would suggest let's deal with items A, B, which really deal with the hiring of a recruitment firm, and item D. Why don't we deal with those separately, and then we'll come back to C and talk about that. So any discussion on A, B, and D? Seeing none. Deputy Clerk, can you take the vote on A, B, and D?
Clauses A, B, and D of item 5.1 carries unanimously. Members of council voting in favor are as follows. Councillors Sokoli, Sless, McCreary, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samuel, Hunt, Martin, Caputo, Sullivan, and Mayor Davis.
Okay. So looking at item C then, so there's really two issues here. One is how many members of council will sit on the committee, and sometimes been two, sometimes in the past been more than that. So I've been keeping track. Please keep in mind, I think it's important we have an odd number on this committee. We've got myself, Councillor McCreary, Councillor Martin, Councillor Sless, Councillor Hunt, Councillor Sokoli, and Councillor Samuel. And I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 7. So what we have in front of us was a staff report that said 4. Now we can go to 6 council members and the mayor. There's nothing to say we can't. But I think there's 2 decisions to be made there then. One is how many council members in addition to the mayor do we want on this committee? And I suggest it's either 2, 4, or 6. And if someone could perhaps put that on the floor, let's make a decision on that. If we make it 6, we don't have any problem. We've got 6 that have volunteered, in addition to myself. So Councillor Hunt, would you like to put that on the floor that we?
I'm going to put it on the floor that it's the mayor and 4 councillors. I think
we're 4 councillors.
Yeah, we're getting very close to everyone on council being on the committee.
Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Caputo. Any discussion on that? Yes, Councillor Carpenter and then Councillor Scully.
That is important. With 4 and the mayor is 5, you have to be careful about getting a majority of members of council on a committee because then you fall into a whole set of different rules of having a quorum of council and how the reporting structure changes significantly. So I think the 4 is the right idea. Thank you. As much as I'd like to see all of the members on that committee, I think that's the right idea for the right reasons.
It's an excellent point you've made, Councillor Carpenter. Councillor Scully, any discussion on the resolution on the floor, which is 4 plus the mayor?
Yes, I think it should remain 4 plus the mayor. I'm hesitant to have too many cooks in the kitchen. And it's going to be a very overwhelming process. So as much as I think I will add value, given my experience, I would be happy to remove my name from the short list. That leaves us with an uneven number, and perhaps there's someone else who will also remove their name, but I will remove my name from the short list.
Let's deal then first with what Councillor Hunt has put on the floor, which is 4 plus the mayor. I don't see any other hands raised. So, Mr. Deputy Clerk, could you please take the vote on that, which is the numbers on this committee?
The amendment for the CAO selection composition of 4 members plus the mayor carries unanimously on a recorded vote. Members of council voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Sokoli, Sless, McCreary, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samuel, Hunt, Martin, Caputo, Sullivan, and Mayor Davis.
All right. So I've been keeping track here. We now have myself and 5 members of council consisting of Councillor McCreary, Councillor Martin, Councillor Sless, Councillor Hunt, and Councillor Samuel, who volunteered. Do any of those 5 wish to retract their names so we don't have to have a vote off? If so, just raise your hand. Seeing not any raised hands. So, Mr. Deputy Clerk, we need to have, similar to the nominations committee, we need to have a vote.
So through the chair, the process for this, I will ask each councillor one by one to submit up to 4 votes. They don't have to vote for 4 individuals, but because the composition is 4 members plus the mayor, I will do that. So I will start with Councillor Samuel, as we will start with the in-person attendance in the chambers. So Councillor Samuel, who would you like to vote for on the CAO selection committee?
Excuse me, Chris, could you repeat the rules on how this goes? I missed part of it. Thank you.
Through the chair, will be similar to the appointments committee process that was conducted in open session. So the composition is 4 members of council plus the mayor. So what I'll do is I'll go to each individual councillor and ask them for their 4 votes on who they wish to sit on the committee.
Can I raise a point of order, please?
Go ahead, Councillor Carpenter.
Yes, the clerk is correct. We could vote for up to 4, but we don't have to vote for 4. We could vote for 1, 2, 3, or 4, just to be clear on what the rules are.
Yeah, I believe the deputy clerk said that, but it bears repeating and clarification. You don't have to vote for 4. You vote for up to 4.
Could you repeat the nominees just once for me? I'm pretty sure I have it right,
Yeah.
but I just want to make sure.
So I've got it as Councillor McCreary, Councillor, this is in the order in which they volunteered. Councillor McCreary, Councillor Martin, Councillor Sless, Councillor Hunt, and yourself, Councillor Samuel.
Okay, thank you. So I would like to choose Councillor Hunt, Councillor Sless, Councillor Samuel, and Councillor McCreary.
Councillor Hunt.
I'm going to choose Councillor Samuel and Councillor Hunt.
Councillor Caputo.
I will choose Councillor Sless, Martin, McCreary, and Samuel.
Councillor Sullivan.
I choose Councillor McCreary, Councillor Hunt, Councillor Sless, and Councillor Samuel. Counselor McCreary, Counselor Samwell, Counselor Hunt, and Counselor Sless.
Thank you. Counselor McCreary.
I choose myself, Counselor Martin, Counselor Sless, and Counselor Samwell. Is that 4? How's my math? Pretty good?
I'll now start with members of council who are attending virtually. Counselor Sless.
Thank you, Clerk. I'll vote for myself, Counselor McCreary, Counselor Martin, and Counselor Samwell.
Counselor Martin.
Yes, I vote for myself, Counselor McCreary, Counselor Sless, and Counselor Hunt.
To confirm, Counselor Martin, you voted for Counselor McCreary, yourself, Counselor Sless, and Counselor Hunt.
Correct.
Thank you. Counselor Carpenter.
Thank you. Counselor Samwell and Counselor Hunt. Thank you.
Counselor Sokoli.
Oh, boy. Okay. I'll do Counselor McCreary, Counselor Martin, Counselor Sless, and Counselor Hunt.
Counselor Van Tilborg.
Counselor McCreary, Counselor Samwell, Counselor Sless, and Counselor Hunt.
And Mayor Davis.
Councillors McCreary, Sless, Hunt, and Samwell.
Thank you. Just give me like 15 seconds to do quick math and I'll announce the results of the vote. Okay, through the chair, the results of the vote are as follows. Counselor McCreary, 9 votes. Counselor Sless, 9 votes. Counselor Hunt, 8 votes. Counselor Samwell, 9 votes. And Counselor Martin, 5 votes. Based on the results of this election process, Counselors McCreary, Sless, Hunt, and Samwell will sit on the CAO selection committee.
Great. So, I'll just simply say this, that thank you to members of council. This is probably one of the most important decisions we're going to make in 4 years. And I think we're off to a good start to have a process that is going to be very comprehensive, very thorough, and very inclusive. So I think the decisions we've made this afternoon harbors well for that process. So we'll move into, we don't have any other resolutions.
Mr. Mayor?
Sorry, we'll have to vote now on clause C as amended. Sorry.
Right, sorry.
So, Mr. Deputy Clerk.
Clause C as amended carries unanimously on recorded votes. Members of council voting in favor as follows. Councillors Sokoli, Sless, McCreary, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samwell, Hunt, Martin, Caputo, Sullivan, and Mayor Davis.
All right, so we don't have any resolutions. One notice of motion. It's mine. I'll read the title. Scheduling.
Mr. Mayor, may I, sorry.
Yes, Councillor.
I'd be quite happy, your notice of motion is very important. I'd be quite happy to accept that as a motion and deal with it today. If all members of council feel the same, I as one feel comfortable to do that today. I know it's important what you're doing here.
All right, well, anybody can move a motion to waive the rules in respect to the time period required, but I think I got to get the notice of motion on the floor. So I've read my title. And if somebody wants to move a motion to waive the rules so that we deal with it today, we can do that. That would require a 2/3 vote. So Councillor Carpenter, you're putting on the floor then a motion. We waive the rules, deal with this afternoon.
I am, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Seconded. Yes, second by Councillor Samwell. Seeing no discussion. Mr. Deputy Clerk, can you take the vote on that, which is a motion to waive the rules to allow us to deal with this resolution this afternoon?
The resolution to waive the rules carries unanimously on a recorded vote of 11-0 with the required 2/3 vote. Members of council voting in favor as follows: Councillors Sokoli, Sless, McCreary, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samwell, Hunt, Martin, Caputo, Sullivan, and Mayor Davis.
So if I can go and get a mover and seconder to put it on the floor. Moved by Councillor Carpenter, seconded by Councillor Sullivan. Discussion. Oh, yes, Councillor McCreary.
Mayor, thank you. So we are going to accommodate a later start time for special city council meetings. What exactly will that time be?
Well, in the past, it has. So what this is prior to COVID, we would meet as many as one, maybe more times per month on a Tuesday afternoon, typically at 4 o'clock. And we'd then have a supper break. We deal with the business, have a supper break, and then continue on with the either cow or city council at 6. During COVID, because we were all doing this through COVID, we moved away from that. And what we tried to do was have special city councils one Tuesday afternoon per month, starting at 2. And the reason for the early start time was we want to make sure we're allowing ourselves enough time to deal with however many items there would be on the agenda for that day. If we go back to the old system, almost certainly we'll be meeting, having special city council meetings more than one Tuesday per month. And that's fine. That's the way we used to do it. And we did it that way, starting at 4 to accommodate those who work during the day.
Mayor, I'm sure that's an answer to some question that was unasked. Are you indicating that we'll be starting at 4?
In a roundabout sort of way, yes.
Okay, so let's amend it to reflect the 4 o'clock start in the resolution. I'll move that amendment.
I would ask unless otherwise designated by the mayor, and I'll say that because occasionally I'd call for a start before 4 o'clock just because of the size of the item and the complexity. I knew if we started at 4, we wouldn't get through it. But the intent would be to always start at 4 unless there were some exceptional circumstances.
Mayor, thank you for that. So are you accepting that as friendly then? Mover and seconder?
Yes, that we would start at 4 o'clock unless otherwise decided by the mayor, because I usually call the start time.
And let me ask further then. I don't believe the corporation has budget to feed councillors in between 2 meetings. Are you incorporating that as part of your intent here, Mayor?
Absolutely.
So are you attaching a budgetary item to this as well?
I don't have a budgetary item to it. I guess I'd ask staff.
So you refer that to estimates committee?
Yes, you refer to
Okay.
the estimates committee.
Thank you very much. I'm fully supportive of this. Hadn't expected it to come forward today, or I'm sure members of council would have had perhaps some more commentary to make on it.
All right, so we have no one else in the council chamber. We have Councillor Carpenter and Councillor Slutz virtually.
There's no such thing as a friendly motion, so I don't accept the motion as friendly as one member of council. So we'll have to come to a vote. So if it's on the floor, did you have a mover and seconder put it on the floor?
Yeah, sorry, you're right, Councillor Carpenter. I should have asked you as a mover and Councillor Sullivan. So I assume, so you do not accept the friendly amendment request to have 4 o'clock in the resolution?
Friendly amendments require all members of council to accept it. Once a motion has been moved and seconded, it belongs to the floor.
Right.
And
so but the request to you is, would you agree to incorporate it as a friendly amendment?
no, I would not.
Okay. So Councillor McCreary, you put it on the floor then that we have the 4 o'clock start. Do we have a seconder for that? Yes. Councillor Samwell seconded that. Any discussion on that amendment?
Yes, I put my hand. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, Councillor Sluss. On the 4 o'clock start time amendment.
My hand's up for the main motion. Sorry, Mr.
So this is for discussion. Councillor Hunt.
So this is discussion on the amendment as to whether the 4 o'clock start be incorporated into the main motion.
Correct.
And my point being, is that necessary? Because you've just indicated that it will likely always be a 4 o'clock start unless it needs to be an earlier start based on the size of the agenda. So I guess my point is, why would we worry about putting the start time into the main motion if the understanding is that it likely will always be 4 o'clock unless in special circumstances it needs to be. I'm not understanding the rationale for the time needing to be part of the main motion.
I think it's to add clarity to the resolution and to give staff some directions to what the start time should be. I mean, it's been 4 o'clock historically by custom. This is just specifying that.
Okay.
So I think it's an order, and whether we want to do it this way or we don't, and we can decide by how we vote on this amendment.
Okay.
So anyone else in the chamber? I'll go to Councillor Councillor McCreary.
Mayor, thank you. I can offer a little clarity. If we're going to have 4 o'clock starts and the mayor's intention is to have a meal in between, that has to be clarified up front so that we can have the budget for it, so that we can populate calendars with the start time. If the mayor chooses to hold a meeting at a different time, that's up to him, given proper notice. But that's the intent, is to clarify the start time, to clarify the budget on this, if there's going to be a budget for meals in between. If not, then the 4 o'clock perhaps is not the right start time. And that's why I proposed having a start time, is so we can make those decisions. And I don't know what, I supported bringing this forward today, but I'm not so sure what the intent was of creating a discussion today around something that all members of council hadn't given a lot of thought to, but here we are. So that's why I've offered some clarity to the council.
All right, Councillor Martin.
Thank you. For the benefit of the councillors that have come on since COVID, when we did this before, if we ran into a situation where the in-camera went longer than we anticipated, we also had the option of delaying the start of the council meeting. It was unfortunate. I guess people would tune in at 6 o'clock and find a message saying that it was delayed till 6:15, but it allowed us a chance to get something to eat. I think it's important to have the start time in there, but it's also important that staff have the flexibility that if it's a large in-camera agenda, they need to start it sooner so that we have enough time to get through the agenda and with enough time to prepare for council meeting following. So I'll be supporting this, and I wouldn't be surprised if staff have in the budget somewhere the meals from before is allocated somewhere, and if not, they'll find the money somewhere, I'm sure, but that's an issue for estimates. So I'll be supporting the amendment on the floor.
Councillor Carpenter.
Yes, I wanted to have a discussion on the amendment. And by the way, I have thought about this resolution for quite a while since it was in the agenda. I read the agenda and I think about it well in advance for those that think that comment may have been directed at me. But I really just wanted to have a discussion on the amendments clearly, because I don't want to tie the mayor's hands. If the mayor needs to have a special council meeting at 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock or whatever that may be, I want that flexibility there for the mayor and for council. The mayor is the head of council and he may have to call meetings before 4. I just didn't want the 4 o'clock. I don't have a problem with 4. I just don't want the 4 o'clock to be the only time. I want to make it clear that if the resolution is going to say 4 o'clock, it needs to be clarified in the resolution and the wording that the mayor has the right to call a meeting earlier if he deems it necessary. And if that's in there, then I can support that. But I needed to make sure that the resolution is clear about that. And the funding, that's another matter. We don't have to have meals necessarily.
Right, just to make sure that's clear. Why don't you share the screen, Mr. Deputy Clerk, so we can. Okay.
Through the chair to the councillor's question, section 15.3.3 permits the mayor to call special city council meetings as it pertains to in-camera meetings. It gives the mayor the flexibility to call those meetings at their discretion in terms of start times. The amendment that's on the floor is simply requesting the mayor to have the start time of 4 p.m. So that doesn't necessarily take away it provides still that flexibility that's in the procedural bylaw to have the meetings start a bit earlier if we need to, but at the same time provides that structure to members of council that this is the agreed upon start time of 4 p.m.
Okay, so we would just add in there that have the start times normally at 4 p.m. But that would clarify that if anybody's not looking at the other bylaw. Okay, thank you.
So Councillor Van Tilburg.
I think the deputy clerk answered my question. I'm actually quite happy to have the 4 p.m. start because day like today, this is like 2 a.m. for me. So that'll be kind of like moving it to 4 a.m. So a little easier on my body. But I believe in the past, we've always made it work. If we've had to have that special council meeting and it's a necessity, you call it when the mayor needs it. That's the power that's there. And I think a targeted 4 p.m. meeting is a good one to have. It's not that often we have something that runs 2 hours long, but on occasion, yes, it does. The other thing, if I remember correctly, is sometimes I think we did start at 4:30 just because it was a shorter agenda and it was just like a quick snap and a wink just for a quick vote. But again, all that relies upon what the mayor's decision is. So I'll be happy to support the 4 p.m. timeline.
Councillor Sicoli.
Just by way of gaining some background, was this bylaw amended with COVID? Or was it always this way?
It was amended with COVID.
Okay, and prior to the COVID, did the bylaw make any mention to the start time of the meetings? Or is this a new addition?
Right, I can't remember. Can you remember, Mr. Deputy Clerk?
Through the chair, prior to COVID, I believe the procedural bylaw spoke to the amount of meetings within the day, and the actual meeting start time of 2 p.m. was a meeting process review task force report recommendation to council aimed to kind of streamline the in-camera meetings. I could get back to you with regards to the original procedural bylaw pre-COVID.
Okay. Seems a little redundant, but I think Chris provided some clarity that it was no harm, no foul. It's still at the call of the mayor, so I am happy to support it. Thank you.
All right, so I'll call the vote then on the amendment to setting the time at 4 o'clock.
The amendment to item 6.1 carries unanimously on recorded votes. Members of council voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Sicoli, Sless, McCreary, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samuel, Hunt, Martin, Caputo, Sullivan, and Mayor Davis.
All right, so the motion as amended. Any further discussion? Councillor Sless?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't be supporting the amended motion. I'm quite content the way things are right now. If memory serves me, I think a meals budget was around $30,000 annually. We're putting that back into the budget, I guess. But I'm quite happy with the 2 o'clock once a month start, and so I won't be supporting what's on the floor. Thank you.
Councillor McCreary?
Mayor, thank you very much. So we don't have a budgetary item before us. I spoke of it, but that's not part of the resolution as amended or prior to being amended. So I guess whether or not a budgetary item arises or exists would be up to the mayor's office to investigate and determine whether that would be advanced. It's not part of what we're talking about today.
Correct. It's not part of what we're talking about. We're going to be seeing the operating budget later this month, and it'll have to be built in. The logical place to do that would be under either my budget or the CAO budget. So it'll be likely added. Well, it'll almost, if the decision today is we start at 4, which assumes that we do have a dinner portion, then we'll find somewhere to build it in, and council will consider it during estimates committee. So any further discussion? I'll just say this, that, I mean, I'm the one that brought it forward on notice of motion. I think that kind of similar to a resolution I brought before Christmas, which reflects the fact that our system assumes that the members of council, other than myself, are part-time, and that the meeting should be arranged to facilitate those members of council who do have employment, many of whom work during the day. And so this is part of that process, which is to assist and facilitate part-time counselors who do work. We didn't do it through COVID because, well, many people weren't working during the day other than working at home. And it seemed to fit in better with people's work schedules during COVID to have the 2:00 start time once a month. So I'm happy to have brought this resolution forward, which brings us back to the system we had prior to COVID. So with that, not seeing any further raised hands, Mr. Deputy Clerk, please take the vote on the motion as amended.
Item 6.1 as amended carries on a recorded vote of 10-1. Members of council voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Sokoli, McCreary, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samwell, Hunt, Marn, Caputo, Sullivan, Mayor Davis. Members opposed, Councillor Sless.
All right, so we'll now move into bylaw, because we have to bylaw the decisions we've made today. So I believe Councillor Hunt, you have the motion for first and second reading of the confirming bylaw.
I do, seconded by my ward mate, Councillor Carpenter, that leave be given to the mover and seconder to introduce the following bylaw for first and second reading. 1-2023 bylaw to confirm proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Brantford with respect to the special City Council meeting held on January 10th, 2023.
All right, so I'll call the vote then, Mr. Deputy Clerk, on first and second reading.
The first and second reading of bylaws carries unanimously on recorded votes. Members of council voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Sokoli, Sless, McCreary, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samwell, Hunt, Marn, Caputo, Sullivan, and Mayor Davis.
All right, so we'll move to third reading. I believe Councillor Sokoli, you have the third reading motion.
That I do. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Sullivan, that bylaw 1-2023, having received first and second reading, be taken as read a third time and be finally passed and signed by the mayor and clerk.
All right, Mr. Deputy Clerk.
The third reading of all bylaws carries unanimously on a recorded vote. Members of council voting in favor are as follows: Councillor Sokoli, Sless, McCreary, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samwell, Hunt, Marn, Caputo, Sullivan, and Mayor Davis.
All right, so that completes the business of Special City Council for today. We'll take a 5-minute recess. And for those of you who are on HR, we'll then move into the HR committee. And again, if you're coming in virtually and you're on the HR committee, please maintain your connection. We're going to use the same Zoom link.
Bye, everybody.
Well, Happy New Year, John.
I guess we're the only ones here. Happy New Year. Oh, boy. I like that 2 o'clock thing. I didn't want to change that again. I liked it. I don't know. It worked out good in my life.
Hi, counselors. I just want to remind you that we're still live on YouTube. So just in case.
Okay.
Good afternoon, members of the HR committee. We'll get started. I think Councillor Van Tilborg is here. Councillor Van Tilborg just wants us to start his video. We can get started. There we go. We don't have a chair, so I'll start with the election of the chair and the vice chair. So are there any nominations? I'll need a mover and a seconder for chair. Mayor Davis?
Yeah, I would move Councillor McCreary as chair.
And your seconder?
Anybody want to second that? I think Councillor Sless is second again.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for chair? Councillor Hunt?
I'm going to move myself as chair.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second it. Make this interesting.
Councillor McCreary, are there any other nominations for chair before I get going? No. Councillor McCreary, do you accept the nomination for chair?
Indeed, I do.
Okay, so we'll do a show of hands for chair. We'll start with Councillor McQuarrie since that was the first nomination. So all those in favor of Councillor McQuarrie, please raise your hand. Two. Okay, two. Councillor Celeste, you have your hand up. Are you raising your hand to vote? Yes, or?
Yeah, you said raise your hand if you're voting. So I did.
Okay, so that's three. Councillor McQuarrie, those, so 1, 2, 3, we have. Okay, those in favor for Councillor Hunt, please raise your hand. 1, 2. Okay, so Councillor 3. So it's tie.
Another clusterfuck.
I don't know what to do here, guys. I'm sorry. Draw out of a hat.
Flip the coin.
Flip a coin. Does anybody have a coin?
This is the new millennium. Who carries points?
Anybody have a coin?
Robert's rules. Chris, Robert's rules. We don't have this in our procedure.
Robert's rules. I'd be inclined to say it's pick a name out of a hat, similar to the Municipal
3.
Elections Act. So if you like, if it's okay with the committee, we'll pick a name out of a hat. Okay.
Yes. I think so. Chris, can you check to see that all members in attendance today were actually appointed to this committee?
Yeah, I guess there's no chair. There's Mayor Davis, Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Sless, Councillor McCurry, Councillor Hunt, and Councillor Van Tilburg, who have all been appointed by council to be on this committee. So we have full membership here today.
There was one committee that the Ward 4 councillors didn't appoint to. What was that?
I'd have to take a look at
I
that.
think you should.
Yeah. It wasn't this committee though.
Okay.
Okay, so chair is Councillor Hunt. Are there any nominations for vice chair? Mayor Davis.
I nominate Councillor McCurry.
Are there any other nominations for vice chair?
I also nominate Councillor McCreary.
Seeing that there are no other nominations, Councillor McCreary, do you accept the position of vice chair?
If there's a unanimous vote to do so.
All those in favor? Carried unanimously.
Doesn't he have to accept the nomination before he asks that question?
Councillor Van Tilburg, I literally just
I'm just curious. I don't know if you get to ask the room or not. And I've been called out of order numerous times, so just want to know what the procedure was. I don't mind, I do support. I just want to get that clear for future.
So when Councillor McCreary was nominated to be the vice chair, I did ask him if he accepted the nomination for vice chair, and he said yes.
As long as it's unanimous. And then what would that mean if it wasn't unanimous? Would that mean he would decline it? Is that procedural?
Through the chair, we would go through a procedural bylaw at this point, it's majority vote. I think Councillor McCreary was just making a comment.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Hunt.
Sorry, do you by chance have the printed off copy of the roadmap agenda? Just because I'm trying to flip from eScribe to an email.
Through the chair, I don't. I could have somebody print a copy for you. It was emailed to all members of the. Okay.
Okay, got it. So roll call. We've, I think we've already done attendance. So declarations of conflict of interest. So are there any declarations of pecuniary interest for items appearing on the agenda? Seeing none. Separation of items for consideration and consent for discussion purposes. So can I have what is it that you're looking to separate? Mover and a seconder.
Sorry, what? You're recognizing me for my separation? Is that what you're doing?
Sorry, I'm assuming that's what your hand was up for, yeah.
6.1.
Okay, and a seconder to separate. Okay. Any items for separation? Okay, then can I have a mover and a seconder? Sorry, mover and a seconder, put all items on the floor. Items that are separated, so we're going to call the vote.
I think what you want to do is, so we do have the consent item, which is 7.1, the minutes.
Yeah.
So I'm going to suggest probably what we should do is have a motion to put on the floor the items that haven't been separated.
Which is what I had asked
Really,
for a mover
yeah.
and a seconder.
So I'll move that.
Okay.
Look
And a
for-
seconder,
Yeah.
Councillor Sullivan, thank you. Okay, now we're going to call the vote on that.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries.
So no delegations. Item 6.1. So we have a staff report. And Councillor McCreary, you wanted this item separated for discussion.
Through you, Chair. Staff, if you look at 5.0 in the report, we have a reference to 4 temporary staff to commence March 1 and end at the end of 24. And it references report 2022-362. I didn't see that report attached to this. Did I just miss it?
Through the chair, Mary Musson, Director of Housing and Homelessness. No, that particular report was not attached to this report.
Okay. There was no citation in this report regarding what was contained as well, if I recall correctly.
And through the chair, could you repeat your question, please?
It's okay, Mary. So you want 4 staff, March 31 this year to the end of year next year, and we're looking for 1 full-time staff for an assistant for this year. Some of this relates to the move to Lucy Street.
Through the chair, yes, it does.
My recollection was that when we moved to Lucy Street, we designed this building to maximize all our efficiencies and to allow for the type of thing that apparently got overlooked when we moved these staff over here. So the individual that was doing this work as a combined job duty still remains somewhere else?
Through the chair, no, that position was made redundant in
Okay.
the original report. And then what happened, because it was a position that was held by the FIS department, the Family and Income
So
Stability
you're
Department.
talking about report number, help me out here, number 362 from
Through the
362-2022?
No, through the chair, the 362 report is the Housing Stability and Reaching Home Update report that was taken in Q2 to Q3 of 2022. The
Okay.
earlier staffing report.
So the person that was doing this as part of his or her responsibilities is no longer with us?
Through the chair, the person who is with us, they are with us. However, the position itself was made redundant.
Okay, gotcha. All right. So this is, this really is, in terms of that report, it's, in terms of that position, it's not really an increase in spending. You've actually just had that position sort of vacant, if I can paraphrase.
Through the chair, not quite. What happened was the position was a reception type position at 220 Colburn Street. And through the move, what was decided that because that position was doing duties for both family and income stability and housing, it would be made redundant, and an additional property manager assistant position would be brought online to housing, increasing the complement from 4 to 5. What happened after that, that is requiring this increase to complement for the housing department, is that the amount of workload that was actually transitioned to the property manager assistant position is greater than what can be completed by one person.
Sure. Okay. We are a designated reaching home community. What does that mean?
Through the chair, as a designated reaching home community, we do receive reaching home grant funding, and we also have certain obligations that comes with the federal grant money that comes from reaching home.
Is that a good designation or a bad designation?
Through the chair, it's an excellent designation to have, because it also allows us to move forward with our coordinated access and our by name list, and we have been recognized as being on the forefront of that.
Is it recognizing certain statistics, or is it recognizing the fact that we made a good case to get extra money?
Through the chair, it's recognizing that we have actually been able to incorporate a by name list that is successful in supporting people who are experiencing homelessness. So
Sorry, did you say a by name list?
By name list, BY name list.
Is that alphabet soup?
It's alphabet soup.
It's not like Skippy. Let's see, what else do I have here? So with respect to the financial implications, we have a sum of money that's allocated to a Slovak management fee.
Through the chair, yes. We were the successful proponent in the property management for Slovak nonprofit.
Okay.
So part of that money is supporting this position.
Okay, gotcha. All right. It's yeah, okay. So we've got no impact on the city's expenditures, right, for 2023. Is there an impact on any future year budget?
Through the chair, no, not at this time.
Okay, so what happens at the end of the federal funding for this?
So through the chair, so if the Reaching Home federal funding ends, then the 4 housing support worker positions will cease. However, we have already been given the information that we are approved for 2023-2024 Reaching Home funding.
Okay.
And the intent will be to continue to monitor the clerical position. And if it's warranted, it will be put into estimates for 2024.
Okay. It's a term position though, correct? With a finish date?
That is correct.
In each of these cases. Okay. Now, my favorite discussion point, climate and environmental implications. There are no climate and environmental implications for taking on 4 additional staff?
Not that I am aware of.
Okay. They're probably going to drive to work if they work from here.
Through the chair, that section was not included.
Is that section provided to you by somebody else?
That section would be more for the asset management, so for housing.
Okay. So with respect to this report, then the climate and environmental implications isn't the responsibility of this department.
Through the chair, it's not applicable to this report, no.
Okay. And let's see. Yeah, that's the extent of my comments. May I suggest, though, that in future, when we reference another report as part of something that comes to committee, could we make sure that that's appended? Members of committee and council may very well go look for these things in the archive, but members of the public don't have that ability.
Through the chair, that's not a problem, and we can make sure that it's circulated prior
Yeah.
to council.
That's super good work and thank you.
Any other discussion on item 6.1? Seeing none, then we will call the
Excuse me,
vote.
I have my hand up, Madam Chair.
Oh, sorry. I'm looking at a bad screen over here. Councillor Sloss.
Okay, thank you. Through you to Mary. Mary, who did this workflow study?
Through the chair, the workflow study was actually conducted by the manager of operations, who will be directly supervising this position.
Okay. And then my second question, I don't know the numbers, but I presume when we're done doing what you're asking to be approved today, the payroll will increase as far as the number of dollars. Is that correct?
Through the chair, I'm not quite sure what you're asking. It will not affect the base budget. It's all coming from grant money. Absolutely.
I understand that, Mary, but my question to you is, will we be using more grant money to fund this? Then let me ask it that way.
Through the chair, yes, right now it will be increasing the use of the grant money for funding. So we are increasing complement.
Right. Okay. That was my question. So if we hadn't have done this, would the money that we're spending that we wouldn't have spent been returned back to the federal government, or where would that money go?
Through the chair, depending on the funding stream, some money does have to be returned if it's not used. Other money we have permission to roll over. So with reaching home funding, as long as it is identified within a certain time frame, it can be brought forward to the next fiscal year. However, there are times when we do have to return grant funding to the provincial or federal government.
Okay, so in this particular case, if we hadn't have used it, we could have rolled it into something else?
Through the chair, it's possible that we would have been able to. However, we would have received money, or not received money, but we would have incurred overtime for staff who are completing this work currently.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And again, my apologies, Councillor Sloss. I'm looking at a screen off to my left. Okay. Any further discussion? If not, then we will call the vote on item 6.1.
All those in favor? Item carries.
Thank you. Moving on to items for consent items. And these are minutes. And we have already voted, correct? Resolutions, no notices of motion. And that brings us to item 10, which is adjournment of the Human Resources Committee. Thank you.